Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound. We just finished watching the Dutch Grand Prix. Exciting, confounding, somewhat controversial. We have a content-rich episode for you all. Patrick, son, what's your take on the Dutch Grand Prix?
Yeah, my take is Red Bull's master plan. They basically proved once again they have everything figured out, regardless of what happens in a race, what other team strategies are, however well other drivers are performing that weekend, or maybe how poorly their drivers are going. None of that matters. They are 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of anybody else, and will continue to dominate this season. We can discuss perhaps. I know you're the conspiracy theorist here, but I mean, it seems pretty obvious that Red Bull likes to use their sister team, AlphaTauri, to get a leg up when maybe they're falling behind. So. Maybe later on we can discuss a fun conspiracy using Yuki as sort of the backup plan to slow up Mercedes.
Yeah, when you see Red Bull strategist Hannah Schmitz smiling, big old smile, 10 laps to go, it's like, well, Ferrari, Mercedes, you're fucked. This was Max. I mean, like you said, we have now a spending cap, the new regs. Ferrari, for pretty much all season, has had a car that could compete with Red Bull. Mercedes a bit behind, except in some races where they're equal, but with superior reliability. And what happens? Max is already over 100 points. He might have this thing already wrapped up. It's pretty amazing. However, as much as you want to give credit to Red Bull and to Max Verstappen, we must also give notice to Ferrari and Mercedes, because once again, Ferrari screws up in the pits, messes up on the strategy, and rarely, uncommonly, Mercedes like Ferrari always screws up, but Mercedes, this was, you could tell I'm confounded by it, because, they're like, what are they doing? Are they trying to think Lewis could win? And so they're going to use George demanding to come in. I wasn't sure what was going on there. So kind of break it down for me. What was Ferrari thinking? What was Mercedes thinking? Or were they not thinking?
Well, I don't think Ferrari ever thinks about anything. So I think it's not all that surprising that they mucked up their strategy, their pit stops on multiple occasions during this race. It seems like they're really the only team that has issue with some of these things. At what point do we kind of say, well, maybe we should can Mattia Binotto? At some point you have to start thinking like these are chronic issues in the team, and the guy holding the reins, it really comes down to that person, and they don't necessarily seem to have control of the situation. As for Mercedes, it was kind of a challenging position for them to be in. They maybe screwed up a little bit. I think Hamilton could have finished on the podium. But I think Max was always going to win from the position that he was in. Either you leave both drivers out, Mercedes that is, you leave both drivers out on old medium tires, and Max blows past both of them. It wouldn't have mattered if George was in front of Max or not. They both would have gotten past. Or you both come in, put on soft tires, and now Max is ahead of you, and there's no way you catch him. So either way, Max wins the race. But because they split between Hamilton and Russell, that kind of screwed Hamilton. It was the same call that Ferrari made, I think, in Great Britain with Leclerc. He was out in front, Sainz behind, and they brought Sainz in during the safety car there, put him on fresh tires. He ended up winning the race, but Leclerc fell, I think, down to like fourth or something like that. So similar situation here, kind of a tough deal when you pretty much know you're not going to win the race. So I think they figured their best shot was to have maybe Hamilton hold up Max and see if George could get by him, but Max got a perfect getaway off of that safety car, and there was no stopping him. So,
yeah, let's break it down. Ferrari first, then Mercedes. Ferrari started off with so much promise. The end of the turbo hybrid era. They come out testing. They're in Bahrain and Barcelona. They clearly have a car that can compete, that is the fastest. And if it's not the fastest, it's right there with Red Bull. And how do we start the season? Red Bull with uncharacteristic and multiple DNFs. Now look where we are. Through multiple strategic missteps, through Charles sort of occasionally succumbing to the pressure. Now Charles is well over 100 points back. Ferrari is just about to be overtaken by Mercedes in the constructors. This is, I don't know if we should have fired Benito, but there's clearly something wrong there because they have a car that could win. They have a car that's equal to anyone else's. They have a car that if Fernando Alonso was driving in, they'd have more points by now. It's pretty shocking what they've done. But Mercedes also, I'm starting to get a little peeved with them because, this is George's first year on the team. So I understand if they want to sort of make him be the number 2 guy, but we're 15 races in and he's ahead of Lewis. And he's, in my opinion, outraced Lewis for most of the year. And he's sort of having to force the issue like, I could win. I could come in second. Yet they still seem to be favoring Lewis even after the race. Toto apologizing to Lewis, sort of implying, in my view, that they wanted to give Lewis a better shot at winning than George. So I think both teams, both Ferrari and Mercedes, are sort of succumbing to the sort of the overwhelming totality of what Red Bull is bringing here. Max Verstappen, the car, the strategy, the mechanics. They fixed the reliability issues. They've got a solid number 2 in Sergio Perez. I think this one is done. I think this season for the driver championship and constructors might be finished.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit disappointing. At the beginning of the season, we thought this might be a really crazy 3-way battle for the constructor championship, multiple guys vying for the drivers championship. But maybe after the first 6 or 7 races, Red Bull has really taken a commanding lead. They don't look like they're slowing down at all. And it's too much for Mercedes or either driver at Mercedes to make up at this point. And Ferrari seems like they're crumbling. They're just sort of in shambles, have really no idea what's going on. Both drivers seem to be confused by their team, some of the things that they're doing, and really at this point in the season, that's unacceptable. Everybody has to be on the same page. This is the final push to the end of the season, and nobody looks like they're on the same page. Like They don't know what anybody is doing. And these two drivers are kind of left out to dry, doing the best that they can out there. But really, if you have a 10-second pit stop, that screws your entire race. If you put on the wrong tires or what have you, you're done. Your race is over. The margins are too small for that to happen.
It's pretty surprising. Max had such a dominant win last week. This is now his fourth in a row, I believe. But after qualifying, it seemed pretty clear that this could go to Ferrari, to Mercedes, to Red Bull. Hamilton could win it. George could win it. Charles, Carlos, Max, possibly Sergio. And yet, but like I said, Red Bull has just sort of, they're the machine that Mercedes once was. Driver, car, strategy, the team, the pit crew, everything is just firing perfectly for them. It's amazing. Like I said, we've got the new rules this year that were brought into place, all the car regulations, the changes in aerodynamics, the spending cap, and yet, Red Bull, unless they're doing something funny with sister team AlphaTauri, Red Bull has just got it all going in the right direction, and even Mercedes is stumbling when going up against them. Why don't you give me your top 5 for the Dutch Grand Prix?
Yeah, I thought there were a lot of drivers that did pretty well. Some teams kind of shooting themselves in the foot, and then some weird things happening there at the end of the race. But overall, I thought, for me, the driver of the day was Lewis Hamilton. He put on a show. He should have won that race, if not for that weird Yuki issue, and potentially had Mercedes pit him during the full safety car there. He would have had a shot to win. I believe he was kind of screwed out of a win and, frankly, a podium at the very least. But for me, I thought he had the best drive today, and I think his qualifying was really good as well.
It was. Wow. Okay, I do not have Lewis number 1, so give me your 2 through 5.
My number 2 is his teammate, George Russell. I thought he had a great drive as well. Was really putting the pressure on, along with Hamilton on Red Bull, and ultimately got that second place finish. Just not as fast as Max, but he did everything that he could to get up there, and I thought he had a great drive. I personally feel like he wasn't as quick as Lewis, and that's why I have him in second. Then I have Norris in third. That McLaren, not doing so great this season, but he's pretty much single-handedly keeping McLaren in the fight with Alpine up there. I thought he had kind of a sneaky good race this weekend. He was fighting tooth and nail with the Alpines, and really giving it everything, and I thought he had a great weekend.
Nice.
Then I do have an Alpine driver, Fernando Alonso. As always, tons of fun to watch. The Alpine didn't seem to be going as well this week as it did last, but he did everything he could to get a top 5 finish. He was very close, couldn't quite get there, but he also took a gamble on those hard tires and really proved to everybody that they were probably the right tire to be on. So I think he did great from that perspective as well.
It was just the virtual safety car kind of screwed him up later, but that was a good call. Yeah.
And then lastly, my 5th driver of the day is Mick Schumacher.
Wow.
He had a great qualifying session, really proved that Haas had some one-lap pace. And frankly, I thought he had a really good race. He had some awesome battles with Seb Vettel and others. Was really, I think he has started to come into his own a little bit. I think we were a little bit worried at the start of the season that, he still wasn't ready for it. But he's started to handle that car really nicely, puts in some good, strong moves on drivers, and, he's not getting too loose with it anymore, I think. He's sort of found the right places to be. And I thought he put in a really good performance, ultimately finished outside the top 10, but kind of got screwed with some things that were outside of his control. But ultimately, I thought he had a really good race.
Nice. And isn't this interesting? So you have Lewis, George, Norris, Alonso, Schumacher in your top 5. I'm not going to argue with them, but number 1 was Max Verstappen. You don't have him in your top 5. Number 2, Charles Leclerc. You don't have him in your top 5. It sort of really goes, I think, to some of the oddities of this race. Lewis and George in the Mercedes, maybe the 2 top drives of the weekend. They get a 2nd and a 4th, I believe. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Mine varies a bit, quite a bit. Usually we're close. My number 1 was Alonso, once again bringing it, challenging everyone. Had some fun passes, a little short battle with Norris. That was fun to watch. He made the right strategic call. And him and his teammate Ocon keeping Alpine is really the better of the mid-pack teams out there, despite all the craziness and turmoil within the Renault Alpine team. My number 2 is Max. I mean, what can you say? Always puts in the best work. He's the Michael Jordan of F1, I believe. Everybody else is just sort of gonna, fight for second. And, another great drive. He never missed an opportunity. And when it came, powered past Hamilton, another victory. My 3rd is George. I actually have George ahead of Lewis. I think especially when we look at Toto's remarks after the race, where it seemed pretty clear, I think that they still, and for good reason, are favoring Lewis. George in his first year with the Mercedes, he is putting in damn fine work every week. Once again on the podium, just great to see. But like I said, Alonso and Max are the ones that have been in the points, I think at least 10 plus races in a row. I think they just both did a little bit better. My number 4 is Charles. It was a good race. Maybe not his best, but it was an overall good race. And I think once again, we're seeing just how much chaos within the Ferrari team there is. And it's like, you know what? He's having to deal with that every week, and he is still putting in great drives. So I have him number 4. And then my number 5 is Lewis. I mean, what can you say? One of the greatest of all time, still racing, still doing great, still fighting for wins, angry when his team messes up. Love the passion. I think he's lost a little bit, but a good race. And that was a tough one, I bet, for him. He didn't even get on the podium for all his efforts. So that was tough. You have Schumacher as your number 5. I had him as my number 6, actually. And, I had predicted earlier in the season that he'd be out of F1. We still don't know yet where he's going to be next year with another team, still with Haas or out. They had good qualifying. It was fun watching him compete against his good pal and mentor Seb Vettel this weekend. I think Mick has just maybe always had it too easy. He's such a nice guy, and I think we're starting to see him sort of realizing, it's not like he's Stroll. I mean, he is, he's Schumacher's son, but, Michael Schumacher does not own a team. Stroll's father does. And I think he's starting to realize he's got to fight. He's got to get his nasty on, and he has. So that was fun to watch. It was also, I thought it was fun seeing Magnussen hit the gravel, hit the barrier, keep going. I'm like, hey, K-Mag, Haas, ride or die. That was fun to watch, Yeah. And you had Norris in your top 5. I had him in my top 10, but just clearly out racing Daniel Ricciardo week in, week out. It was fun to watch, and Norris's short battles with Alonso were another thing that was fun to watch. So I think that was some great stuff. What about, so we know who won, Max. Who do you think belongs on the virtual podium this week?
Yeah, I think for starters, if you have paid much attention to F1 for any period of time, you probably know the name Adrian Newey. But he is back with Red Bull. He's sort of this genius of aerodynamics. He comes up with all these sort of brilliant aero features on F1 cars, and you can see just how well that Red Bull goes, and a lot of it has to do with the aerodynamics of that car. I mean, the setup is perfect for the races, and they still are among the top in qualifying every single week. I think, that's one of Ferrari's biggest struggles, is being great in qualifying, but then their race pace is lacking. Red Bull has really found a way to sort of harmonize those two things, and I think a lot of that has to do with Adrian Newey's expertise with aerodynamics. So for me, he's on the virtual podium this week.
That is a great one. I don't want to overstate what he's doing because it's F1. It's not the cars everyone drives. But I mean, you think Henry Ford, Enzo Ferrari, McLaren, Porsche, we need a Newey. We need a Newey car. I mean, what he's doing now for Red Bull and his entire time in F1 is amazing. So you're right. That might be the first time we've mentioned him for the virtual podium, but he absolutely deserves to be on there. For me, I'm going with another Red Bull person, Hannah Schmitz, one of the strategists there at Red Bull. Nothing seems to rattle her. She has her strategy fixed. She sticks to it. If something forces that to change, she changes it, seems to make the right call time after time. She is, our American fans will understand this, she is to Red Bull strategy what Nick Saban is to Alabama coaching. It is just relentless, zero mistakes. So she belongs up on the podium, on the virtual podium. I also wish to add someone else to the virtual podium. And it's not a person, it's a group, because we repeatedly saw, in qualifying at least, idiots throwing flares, lit flares onto the track. I love the Orange Army. I love the Dutch fans. And I love seeing those big orange clouds, but throwing lit flares onto the track is stupid. And it appeared that not only did the track officials remove the people who did that, before they could remove them, there was a good bit of self-policing going on, which is nice to see because those people deserve to have their asses beat. So Hannah and the Dutch fans go on to the virtual podium.
That's good. That's good. I had another one as well that's kind of similar to that. But another thing I think that should be on the virtual podium are angry radio messages. I love these.
Yes.
That drivers are getting pissed, that they are showing that frustration, whether it's Alonso towards Hamilton last week or this week Hamilton to his team. This is an intense sport. Drivers are out there. They're they're sort of getting battered by the road conditions all the time. They're throwing these cars around the track at such high speeds, high Gs. And if somebody screws up, hits them, screws them out of a win or a podium, I think it's only fair that they get pissed and yell. I love that. I don't think that they should have to apologize afterwards either. I want to hear more of it. I want to hear more drivers getting pissed at kind of the ridiculousness of things that happen on track or off track or whatever. I like that. I like the passion. I hope it stays in F1 and it doesn't sort of get bogged down by regulations or niceties or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great one. The angry radio messages. That's always great. Last week, the fans attacked Alonso for his angry message. This week, Lewis took a lot of flack for his angry message to the team. I love them. I hear many, I'm surprised by this, many so-called F1 fans saying, they shouldn't broadcast the radio messages, the driver radio messages. And I am always like, do you hate fun? That is so much fun. Those are great. I want to imagine if we didn't know what Fernando really thinks about Lewis. I mean, we'd be robbed as fans, or how pissed Lewis is that his team screwed him, which is rare, but it happens. So I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's switch to the let's switch to the soft compound. Whoa, I pulled a Ferrari. That's twice in one episode.
Oh, no.
So let's switch to the soft compound. So that's 4 in a row for Max. He's won 10 races this year. Amazing. And that's, what was there, 2 DNFs earlier in the year? I mean, 15 races.
In the first 3 races.
15 races, 2 DNFs in the first 3, and he's won 10. And like I said, this is not the Mercedes turbo hybrid era. This is 3 teams consistently battling, 5 teams with very good cars. It's just unbelievable what we're seeing. But he is now 100+ points up over number 2, which is actually tied, I believe, Charles Leclerc and his teammate Sergio Perez. 7 races to go. Is this one all over, Patrick?
Oh, it's over. There's nobody catching that, man. Unless you have somebody torpedoing into him every single race. I don't see him. I don't see him dropping 100 points to anybody. I mean, that'd be crazy. That would be like 4. He would have to DNF or not get any points in 4 races, and then have Charles or Sergio come in first in all of those races for them to be tied. And then there would be 3 races left.
3 races left. Yes.
So there's no way that he loses this championship. Much easier this season than last for him. It will not come down to the final lap of the final race of the season for him this year. He'll win it outright probably in the next few races.
I have to agree with that. It does not look like anyone is going to catch Max. But will anyone catch Red Bull? 7 races left. They've won, I believe, 11 of 15. I don't see this. Mercedes is, about 30 behind Ferrari for number 2, but both are distant. What do you think? Is this going to be a double win, a constructors and driver championship for Red Bull?
I believe it will be. I don't see how. I mean, I think we're both pretty sure that Ferrari is in shambles. They're not going to make up that like 140 point gap or whatever it is. Mercedes is then 30 points behind Ferrari, so it's over 150 points to Red Bull, and I just think in 7 races, that's too many points to make up for a team that's currently firing on all cylinders. You know, they might be able to beat Perez consistently, but he'll only come in a couple points behind them. And then they still have to deal with Max. I just think there's no way they're able to make up that amount of points in so few races, even if they are coming on stronger here in the second half of the season.
Oh, I have to agree with that also. I think there is still time left for Ferrari and even Mercedes to catch up to win the constructors, but I don't know. Time is it's running out for sure. Okay, now it's time to ask the stewards. Did this race seal Daniel Ricciardo's fate, Patrick? Because, I mean, he spent the entire race back there with Nicholas Latifi. Meanwhile, his teammate Lando Norris is battling, for certain top 10. But, there was potential for a top 5 for Lando. So did this race seal Ricciardo's fate? Is he out of F1 in 2023?
It kind of seems that way. I don't know if he really has much confidence in himself at this point, which I think is sort of rare for Ricciardo. He kind of seems down and out, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for him to sit out a season of F1 and collect a $10 million paycheck. But yeah, it seems unlikely that he gets a seat in F1 for next season. There's only really a few options available to him. And I'm not sure that any of those teams are particularly interested. So yeah, I kind of do think that this race, his performance this weekend, sort of sealed his fate.
I predicted months ago on this show that he would be out of F1 next year. It was a crazy prediction that I now think somewhat sadly is going to be true. Now, Colton Herta, American Indy driver, Indy race winner, he is being rumored to take over a seat in Red Bull when and if Gasly goes over to Alpine. However, we are hearing from FIA that can't be because he does not have the appropriate F1 super license points. Now, this seems ridiculous, and it seems not just ridiculous. To me, it seems like clear clubby European anti-American bias. You're telling me with the, 50-plus Indy races Colton Herta has done, however many wins he's had in Indy, that he would have fewer super license points than, say, an F2 driver. This is nonsense. And I have to think if Red Bull or AlphaTauri, the sister team, is serious about bringing him in as their driver, that they're going to figure a way to get him the appropriate credentials to do so. What do you think of the Colton Herta situation?
Yeah, it seems like it's weird, this super license issue. The drivers need like 40 super license points to get a super license, and they're awarded for various things among different sort of series. So for Indy, if there are a certain amount of points awarded for your sort of championship position or whatever. And I think Herta only has something like 32 or 34 points, I think. And is not currently in a position to get 6 more points by the end of the IndyCar season. So he won't have enough super license points to get a super license, et cetera, et cetera. So the FIA won't allow him to compete in F1, which is ridiculous. First of all, if you're a driver in a single-seater series and an F1 team wants you to race for them, why would you be prevented from doing that? I think it's this sort of daddy driver issue that the FIA wants to prevent. But I don't know. I mean, Herta is signed by McLaren. He deals with them. Like, he should be allowed to compete in F1 if a team wants him to. I mean, he's been driving in Indy for a number of years now. He's a great young driver. I think it's absurd to sort of prevent him from doing that based on these super license rules.
Right. No, that's good. Thanks for explaining that, because I wasn't quite sure how the super license points worked, but I can understand, especially with, like you said, the daddy drivers. We don't want someone coming in there, the rich daddy buying up an F1 team, putting his son in there, and the son being an absolute menace. Lives are on the line here. But we know who is a capable driver and who is not. Colton Herta is. He absolutely can drive F1. So I'm going to stick with my conspiracy theory that if they deny him, that it is complete anti-American bias.
Yeah, I think actually you can get like points for participating in F1 free practice sessions. So maybe if a team really wants him to, they can sort of schedule him to drive in their free practice sessions for some of the remaining races this season, and he might be able to make up those points. But yeah, it would be disappointing if he was not allowed to compete in F1, or a team wanted him and he was not allowed to compete in F1 due to this sort of lack of points, super license points. And just like a few, like he is almost there. He just needs a couple more. That would be pretty disappointing, I think.
Awesome. Now, speaking of bringing in new drivers, what is going on with Alpine? Last week, we were worried because the Oscar Piastri situation was not settled. Alpine was saying, no, we have him under contract, but he screwed us over, so we're not going to even let him race. That was sort of the implication. McLaren saying, no, we've signed him to a deal. We were worried that this promising young driver would be out of F1, that he had sort of essentially botched his one big chance to be an F1 driver. When Alonso left, Alpine just assumed, hey, we're going to slide Oscar right in there. We were all happy for him. He tweets out, no, I'm not going to be racing for Alpine. We were all worried that the young man, the young talented driver, had given up his one shot. And this week, thanks to a lot of good reporting and the report from the sort of I don't say trial, but the case, the contractual review case, it just looks like Alpine has no clue what they're doing. Alonso had sort of said, because we all thought Alonso had dropped a bomb on the very last day his contract was, signed with Alpine, that he's like, yeah, I'm out of here, guys. I'm going to take the money and go with Aston. See you later. And we just thought, oh, there must be some screw up. Alpine just was blindsided. Alonso was out there saying, I told these guys multiple times. Maybe Alonso was lying. We were prepared to believe Alonso was lying or fudging the truth a bit. But now it seems like, Oscar Piastri and his team, they kept saying, hey, are you going to sign us or not? Are we going to drive in 2023 or not? Are we going to drive in 2024 or not? What's going on? And it just, when you look at the information coming out of this contractual review case, it just looks like Alpine was stringing him along, which I understand. These teams love to believe that they have full control. But, I mean, they screwed up. It looks like they screwed up bad. So they lose out on Oscar. They lose out on Alonso. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Patrick? This is another confounding issue to me.
Yeah, I don't really know what Alpine was thinking. I mean, it seems like if you have a driver that you want, sign them to a deal, or at least have contract talks with them. Figure out how you're gonna do this, and if it doesn't come to anything, like, fair enough. Then you have to figure out something else. If you want both of them, then have contract talks. Negotiate both of those contracts and figure out. But it had been months since Piastri had signed a contract with McLaren. He signed at the beginning of July. So it seems like Alpine should have known that this was coming the whole time and was caught off guard by both of them saying, "Oh, I'm not going to race for you." And, like, I don't know who is running this show at Alpine, but, like, you got to figure that out. You got to make sure you have your driver set for next season. And at this point, I have no idea who's going to drive for them. Will it be Gasly? I don't know. Maybe he's already signed a contract somewhere else. Like, who? It's so crazy to me that both of these guys could have signed contracts with other teams. I have to imagine that they told Alpine that they were doing this. I mean, you can't just string them along and say, like, "Oh, yeah, I'll sign with you," et cetera, and then, like, all of a sudden be like, "No, I'm going to race for somebody else." That's not acceptable. So I can't believe that would happen, which means Alpine just sort of didn't believe these guys were going to leave, which is outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, Otmar, several other folks associated with Alpine all ran to the media. They questioned Oscar's integrity. They suggested, that he had screwed them over. I don't want to take sides on this necessarily because we don't have all the information, but whether any individual behaved good or bad, it certainly seems that Alpine really screwed this one up. Maybe they'll fix it. Maybe they'll get Gasly, have a good French team. Ocon and Gasly do not appear to like each other all that much, and I love that. I like the team when there's drama inside the team. Okay, across the line. That is our segment where we pick who we think will win and who will be in the top 5 of the next race. The next race is in Italy. That should be a fun one. If a person comes in exactly as we believe, we get 3 points. If they come in the top 5 but not in the position we think that we predicted, we get 1 point. So you could get 5 points, you could get 15 points, you could get nothing. Patrick, what are the standings so far? I think I sort of pulled yet another Ferrari in explaining the across-the-line rules, but what the heck? We all deserve one of those days. So, what are the standings so far?
Yeah. So, after this weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix, you are now sitting on 63 points to my 52. So you're 11 points ahead. We've got, seven races? 8 races?
7, I believe.
7 left?
Yeah, I think the Russia was canceled.
That's right. Russia was canceled.
Yeah, so we got 7.
It's still doable. I'm not down and out yet.
Right. If you get every slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exact, that's 15 points theoretically. Yeah. But yeah, it's not like Max over Charles yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah. So 63 to 52. I believe I go first this week.
Yes.
Monza, crazy fast, big straights. I think Red Bull has proven time and time again that they have the straight line speed. So I'm going to have to take the man, Max Verstappen.
Nice. You have Max. I mean, 4 in a row. He's won 10 already. I think the record is 13 wins in a year. That would be
Yeah.
That would be 11. Woof. I don't know. That would be good. However, it's Monza. It's Italy. I get to go number 1 and 2. I am going with not Charles. First Carlos, then Charles. Ferrari. In Italy.
That's nice. I had faith that they would pull off something at some point later in the season, but now I've vowed to no longer pick any Ferraris because they just screwed me over every single race.
Yep.
But I get 2-3. So I'll go with the guy I thought had a great race this week, Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
And then, I think he's been faltering a little bit, but in that Red Bull, great car. He's a true professional. I'll take Sergio Perez, P3.
Nice. Sergio's been a little bit quiet the past few weeks. Up in the points, just not quite hanging with Max. I think is closely as he should, but yep, he knows what he's doing. So you have Max, Lewis, Sergio. I've got Carlos, Charles. My number 3, I am going to go with, and I'm just going to let my heart decide this, Daniel Riccardo. Somehow.
Wow.
Yes.
Hey, he won last year, so
I know. He did. And that was, I think, the last McLaren win, I believe. So, Daniel, and my number 4, I cannot let my heart choose all of these. I will go with George Russell.
Very nice.
All right, so you're 4 and 5.
4 and 5. I think, we'll just, maybe we will let our hearts decide. I'll go for P4. My favorite driver, Fernando Alonso.
Nice.
Alpine's doing well. And then the real kicker, the fastest ever F1 lap recorded was at Monza in a Williams, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Wow.
2004. So I'm going to say P5, Alex Albon in the Williams.
Oh, that would be outstanding. Albon bringing it every week. Oh, top 5 for him and Williams would be awesome. So you have Max, Lewis, Sergio, Alonso, Alex, Albon. Awesome at Monza. I have Carlos, Charles, a Ferrari 1-2 in Italy. Daniel, a repeat. Well, it's not a repeat. He won last year, but I got him 3rd. George Russell 4th. And so in my 5th, I will choose the forgotten man. No, not Nicholas Latifi. Valtteri Bottas.
Ooh.
I do not believe I've chosen Valtteri all year long, and I think it's time for Valtteri to step up.
Nice. Very nice.
Okay, so for next week or the rest of the season, son, do you have any crazy predictions?
Well, maybe I'll say this. Last year, I believe the only 1-2 finish for any team came at Monza for McLaren, Riccardo Norris. So even though my across-the-line predictions do not reflect this, I will say we will have a 1-2 finish for an unlikely team in Alpine, Alonso Ocon.
Ooh, that would be unlikely. That's a crazy one. Well, then I had selected Bottas to come in 5th in Italy next week, but my crazy prediction also sort of negates that. My crazy prediction is not for next week, but for the remainder of the season, for the season as a whole, that Haas, the lowly American team Haas, will overtake Alfa Romeo and finish the season in 5th place. That's my crazy prediction.
That is crazy.
So I may have pulled another Ferrari. They will finish in 6th place.
6th place, that's right, because McLaren is in 5th currently. Yeah.
Right.
And they're like 70 points ahead or something.
Yeah. But they will, I mean, Bottas and Zhou and the Alfa Romeo team just seems to be sort of fumbling here late in the season. Don't know if they're going to get everything fixed. Haas is, I can't say they're doing well, but they're doing
scrappy.
They're scrappy. They're scrappy. They're scrappy, and I think they will pass Alfa Romeo.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I just looked up here because I was thinking when you said that they have to be a little bit careful because they're sitting in sort of a precarious 7th place now. They're 17 points back of Alfa Romeo, which is definitely doable to make up. But they're only 5 points ahead of AlphaTauri and 9 points ahead of Aston Martin. Right. So that could flip real quickly. They could come in 6th very easily, or they could fall all the way down to 9th very easily.
Yes. So, and, I would not have made this crazy prediction earlier in the season because absolutely AlphaTauri and Aston Martin should be ahead of Haas. They should have been ahead of Haas all season long. It's shocking that they're not. I don't want to take anything away from Gunther, from Magnussen, from Schumacher, from the Haas team, but that's sort of an indictment on AlphaTauri and Aston Martin this year that Haas is ahead of them. So I'm going to say that continues.
Nice. It would be awesome to see after such a disappointing season last year to see them climb all the way up to 6th this season, only behind sort of the big guns. That would be pretty impressive turnaround.
Yep. All right. I want to remind our listeners, send your questions or comments to hardcompoundpod@gmail.com. We may read them on the show. We definitely will read them. And I wish to thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. And we are Lights Out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
Hey, good show, son. Thank you for explaining the super license points.
Yeah.
Not sure why I started losing my voice or why I pulled multiple Ferraris during the episode, but hey, you got to get through it. It's a long season.
Yep, for sure.